find another way, because you are just basically saying, come on in.
You don't want to do the rest of that
one? You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Card Compliance. Man, I about messed that all up.
Yeah, you're just all over the place today.
I know. I started to say this was David from Card Compliance and Donna from HIPAA for MSPs.
Well, you already messed it up once saying it was the boot camp, but you got into a rhythm. You got into the rhythm.
Yeah, that was an intentional thing.
Okay.
So, but anyway, speaking of boot camp, before we dive into this episode, we had the boot camp.
Yes, we did. I thought it was.
It went really well.
Yeah, we got some great feedback. Of course, we want to do some things better, and we got some good feedback on some ways we could, some areas that we can try some different things. But overall, excellent reviews, even though we had some, issues here and there. But it was for a test run of the concept. I think it was very, very positive, and we're, I think, going to look at doing some more. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely think that we need to have a couple of things in the next one. One is, I think we need some stools. I think you and I both were starting to be hunchback in Notre Dame by the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's kind of hurting.
Yeah.
The other thing I found out is we need a defibrillator.
Just don't be picking on me. Don't start.
Well, I wasn't talking about just you, but there were some people that, I saw that really thought they were going to pass out a few times.
Yeah, there were a few times that eyes got really big in the room, and I would just pause to let them kind of calm down a minute. There were a couple of moments where it was like, what?
Yeah, but I mean, the good thing is you almost always saw everybody just constantly writing, which is great. That way, that you're giving them information that they want to take back and put into practice. So it was good stuff.
Yeah, and it's a shout out now to all the grunts who showed up for boot camp.
So we're going to call them grunts, are we?
Yeah, I don't know. It worked right now.
You didn't like the hipsters?
No. But all of you guys, we had the small group that we wanted to have, but it was too big to start rattling off everybody's name, but who you are. And it was a great mix of people that had different jobs. So we could have conversations about, well, this is how the administrators looked at it, the administrators of the practices, and we had the technical people who were in charge of security stuff. We had a lawyer there. It was a really eclectic mix of people that gave us some great conversation, except when we hit the nerd stuff. And of course, me, you, and the nerds, down the rabbit hole we went.
That was so easy to do too.
Yeah, but you guys were great, and we really appreciate your support and your feedback and all your help in helping us know where we need to go next. And one big thing we did was we actually followed through on our plan to do our Amazon giveaway.
Yeah, we did. And unfortunately, we had somebody. I'm picking on him. He knows I pick on him.
Yeah.
But Anton, don't ask me how to say his last name, but Anton is the winner. And so he was already there to receive his prize, and we're still wondering what he's going to buy us with that money.
Yeah. Yeah, we did it on Facebook Live. You can go back and see. And Krista had the great idea of putting the names in a boot, and then they all fell way down into the toe. So we had to dump that out and start over, and they had to put something crammed down in. It was, there's always something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we had some creative entries, and all the boot campers got 3 entries, and we had to let some of them know because they were learning about the podcast. They learned about boot camp differently.
All right.
And so then we had everybody signed up to download the podcast before they left. But I thought it was some great feedback that we got and some good interaction from folks. And thanks for all of you that got an entry in. And of course, as you said, the ones that had the most entries didn't win.
And that's the way it happens to me all the time. That's why I just buy one ticket.
But that celebrated our 100th episode. And this episode is the 104th, which makes it officially 2 years of Help Me with HIPAA.
We 2 years old. We finally getting out the bottle. Well, I don't know about you.
Well, in potty training you're in the terrible too, so never mind.
It won't get any easier, I promise. But you know what? Here's something we do need to know from the listeners, though. Where would you like to see a boot camp happen? So, we're not sure yet if we're going to make this a traveling circus, but if we do, we've had a couple of people. Had a guy outside of New York that said, "Hey, if you're going to be up this way, let us know." I think we had somebody up around, was it Detroit or somewhere around in there?
Yeah,
I think
Minnesota, Michigan area up in there.
So we've had a couple people,
Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let us know. Send us an email, contact@helpmewithhipaa.com. Let us know where you are and would like to have a boot camp so we can research it, and let us know how much you're willing to pay for it. So, no, I'm just kidding.
But we are, in the consideration process, and we'll certainly consider any ideas. But we're looking for something where we don't have to spend a ton of money on the facilities, so that we're
keep the costs down.
Yeah, we really want to keep the costs down, but we also, we could have it open to tons of people, which would then pay for that. But it really made a difference, those conversations we had at breaks and while we were having lunch and, before and after the meetings and the recap time and having that. And you can't do that in a group much bigger than what we had. So I like the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have the smaller groups to get that kind of interaction like we were trying to get.
Indeed.
So anyway, congratulations to Anton again. And okay, so let's jump back on our normal schedule of things. Where are you speaking next?
Well, next is June. I can't believe
you got a little break.
I know. Well, I am doing this week and next week. The formedapproved.com folks have signed me up as a new SME, as they call it, subject matter expert.
Nice.
And I'm doing a session for cybersecurity officers. So we're talking about what cybersecurity frameworks are and how to use, there's a wide variety of frameworks. We'll review those, and then we get down to the NIST, CSF. I'll explain all of that in the class and how to use it with HIPAA to build your cybersecurity plans. Mm-hmm. And why you would want to understand all these frameworks and stuff as a cybersecurity officer. So, and they have the certification on all that behind it, and CEs and CEUs and CA blah, blah, And I'm really enjoying working with those guys. So shout out to all you guys over at Formed Approved. Thanks for bringing me into the fold, and looking forward to seeing how this goes.
Cool.
But then I'll be in Valdosta in June, and the Atlanta Association of Legal Administrators in July. And then I have a break in August right now, August and September. I don't know how that's going to work out because that's usually when they start picking up. But North Metro MGMA, I'm already locked in October, and it's a redo of the session I did for the Georgia MGMA. One of their folks was there, and it actually turned out to be quite telling because our topic for the week on WannaCry references so many things that I accidentally talked about the first on May the 2nd. And then in November, the Georgia Association of Orthopedic Executives Conference in Callaway Gardens. So,
cool.
What?
And that brings us to our topic of the day. So here's how awesome we are. That we have a topic dumped in our laps and we make an episode out of it in just mere moments. So, you've always heard Donna talk about she's always got multiple shows in the can to work on, and she always does. It's usually us trying to pick out what we're going to do because there's always plenty of content. But we had something happen last week, and we had the WannaCry or WannaCrypt ransomware outbreak, and we want to talk about that. But the interesting thing is that we were actually in the middle of our ransomware session at the boot camp.
Yeah.
When this kind of started happening.
Yeah, well, the first I saw of it was at lunch when Daniel, the camera guy, because we did have everything recorded so the attendees can go back and watch it. And Daniel brings over and he's like, I'm sitting here listening to all this stuff. Look what popped up on one of my feeds. My feeds, not yours. Mine. And it was about the things going on in England, the NHS getting hit. And I was like, what the... that's interesting. I got to look at it. And then by the time you were halfway through the ransomware session, we're up there doing ransomware response planning, and everybody's looking at their phones. They're getting these alerts left and right. It was insane.
And I think Zach's the one that had the breaking news. He's like, look at this.
I know. It was really cool that it was ironic that that's what we were teaching when that happened.
And I think the comment you said was that the scary part is that everybody who should be in the practices telling people not to click on stuff are all here. So there's no telling what you're going to walk into.
Yeah,
when you
sorry.
get back.
Everybody's texting and stuff.
Don't click on anything.
Yeah, but the thing is still, it was insane how that thing was rolling. Mm-hmm. And they still are sending out alerts this morning saying they're worried that it's going to morph and start growing again. Mm-hmm. It's been slowed down now, but it's already been called one of the most destructive cyber attacks we've ever seen, which is not a good sign.
No, But as we always do, let's see what we can actually learn from all this.
Yes.
So the first thing is the funny part, if you have a twisted sense of humor like we do, is the fact that this came from NSA tools that came out from WikiLeaks, I believe it was.
Yeah, they were published on WikiLeaks, all the NSA cyber monitoring and attack tools, which is scary that those could be released in the first place because they're supposed to be the most secure people. That's a little worrisome. But once those things hit the web, it was like, hey, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Birthday, Happy Graduation, here's for your wedding, your bar mitzvah, your bat mitzvah, all of those gifts piled into one for all the hacker criminals out there. So,
yep. So I think they estimated 200,000 infections in one day.
Yeah. They think that in we've already had 200,000 infections worldwide. And that in itself is crazy. And that was one of the things that I had done in that presentation I did. I was comparing the outbreak of the flu to these kinds of outbreaks and how while the flu can spread in hours, an infection can spread in hours, it takes seconds for these infections to spread. And that was what I was talking about at the conference earlier this month. And so then to see it, I showed them the spread of a known ransomware variant hotspots on the map. And then to watch it actually happening, it was absolutely terrifying, even for me, to see. If you watch one of those things showing how it spreads, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. But it spread. Well, let's see. The Financial Times had a great report that they did, and of course we'll have a link to it. But the Financial Times covered it and said that they kind of tracked a timeline of what happened. That the Friday morning, a Spanish mobile operator, Telefonica, it's Spanish. It's the first large organization that reported the attack. That was early Friday morning in Spain. Then late morning, hospitals and clinics across the UK started reporting it. So then it went into healthcare. And they were reporting it to their national cyber incident response centers. And then it started spreading through Europe. You got the French car maker Renault was hit. in Germany, Dushaban, high-profile victim. And then in Russia, the Ministry of the Interior, a big megaphone mobile phone provider there, and Cyberbank became infected. So those are big, huge names in Russia. So it literally an outbreak started in Europe and then hopped the pond, so to speak, and started hitting the U.S., and FedEx was the highest profile victim. So we're talking about a ransomware attack that it had big healthcare implications. So with the time frame that it took, it wasn't targeted at healthcare. It just happened to get in them, and once this thing hit, it spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why it's all of a sudden. Now, we're lucky in the United States, I just like to say, that a researcher in, I think it was in Britain. I can't remember where. It was in Europe. It wasn't in the United States, I don't think. But a researcher studying the thing, trying to figure out how to stop it or combat it, they get in and read the code, right? Mm-hmm. And he sees in the code, and he goes by the handle malware tech. So we don't even know who this person is, but they may have saved the world.
I know.
It's Superman.
By accident. That's the funny part.
Malware tech. Da, 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 da.
Shout out.
There you go. But they found in the code that there was like a kill switch in this thing that said, go see if you can find this really screwy, long domain name. Mm-hmm. And if you see it, then don't attack. Stop. So it could shut itself down.
Right.
And I don't know if they put that in there for testing purposes or what, but that guy noticed it, and he goes and looks, and nobody had registered the domain. So he quick registered the domain, slapped something up there, and all of a sudden it just quit spreading. Mm-hmm. So that we could recover a little bit, and everybody was like,
unless you got some kind of firewall rule or something up that basically says don't go to that domain, then it's
yeah, that's where the flaw is, because that domain is so weird, it was blacklisted.
Yep.
So then you would never find it. So there's a lot of problems with the fact that all of it played on all of the security plans that people had in there. But the big issue, though, is it was using XP 2003, 2008, all Windows systems no longer supported. Mm-hmm. It was using known vulnerabilities sitting in those versions of the Windows operating system. Yeah. So if you weren't on Windows, this didn't hit you. Let me just say.
True.
But, that's not to say the next round won't. Don't feel confident that you're secure if you're not running Windows. It's just this one didn't hit you. But here's some important lessons that I think we learned, and we can kind of debate those a little bit.
Well, it is, before we move on to this, it is kind of worth saying something that I saw that I thought was kind of remarkable. I've never seen it before, that Microsoft put out a patch for operating systems in which it had stopped servicing a long time ago.
And called it an emergency patch.
I know. It's like we haven't supported XP for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, but we're going to put out a patch for it for this. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes to show you just how many are still sitting out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things. I saw a criticism of the National Health System in England, that people were saying the reason it spread there is they used so many XP computers, and they came out in a big, no, we don't use that many XPs. We had other problems. So it's not like you had to have XP 2003, 2008 that got infected. I mean, it was a much bigger issue, and it apparently, first it came in with phishing, but then it utilized some backdoor stuff that spread like wildfire. I mean, once it got into your network, it was just a matter of seconds or minutes that you had to react. Mm-hmm. It's not something, it wasn't something where you're like, oh, let's run a test. Let's see what they've got. No, you didn't have time.
I saw a picture on one of the news blogs, and it had a guy standing in a room with probably 40 computers, and like at least half a dozen of them were sitting at the ransomware, screen.
Wow.
But here's the thing that I caught was that the other, 35 computers or so that didn't have that screen on there, they were still up and running. I'm like, what? Why are these things still on?
Well, it must have been after the domain name was there, because even if you were infected, it wouldn't start running. So
yeah, I don't know.
What's going to happen though is, as long as that domain's out there, that thing can sit there dormant.
Mm.
And if it's got some other kind of backdoor, or they hack that, I don't know what's going to happen. But they know. I mean, that's what stopped it. It didn't stop because we found a solution.
It's because they didn't anticipate that when they were building the ransomware.
Yeah. Think of it as, what's the story with the little boy with his finger in the dike in the Netherlands story,
Mm-hmm.
So the dam is burst and they put their finger in it, but eventually somebody's got to move. Somebody's going to go around that another way. Another hole's going to open up. So it's not something to take lightly and say, oh, well, that was a whole bunch of nothing. You better be acting now.
Yeah. I sent out a special bulletin this morning to all my clients and going over, what all the fuss was about and what we're doing about it, which honestly, we're doing the same thing we do all the time. It doesn't really change much of what we do, but it does change how we kind of react to the news and calming fears. But, then I covered some things that clients need to be making sure they're doing, because honestly, it doesn't matter how great your tools are. If your users are going to click on stuff and all that, it's going to bypass them.
Yeah. Now this particular one, this one's fun to say. If you were following HIPAA rules, this particular one, you would have been protected from. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're right.
I know. So shout out to OCR. You get to say that. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's just HIPAA patch management, which is a requirement.
Yeah. If you were only using systems that had supported operating systems, i.e. not XP 2003 or 2008, if you were only using those and you kept the patches up to date, then it wouldn't have hit you. And that's why we didn't really have to panic a lot about anybody getting hit, because, I know the ones that we deal with that closely, they're on top of the patches. Now, everybody was panicking, running around making sure that it was there, but you didn't have like an entire network full of unpatched systems, which we run into from time to time. And I'm not saying we don't have clients that do that. I'm just saying the ones that are intimately involved with us, we really pound away about patch management. We think it is one of the most important ones. I mean, today, antivirus has kind of taken, in my opinion, almost like a second fiddle to patch management in a lot of ways, because it's no longer spread necessarily with a virus. They're just using vulnerabilities in the operating systems and Adobe and whatever other application they can find.
Yeah, I'm waiting on somebody to start using some of the more, not necessarily obscure third-party software, but let's just say, for instance, somebody finds a vulnerability in QuickBooks. Well, most patching software doesn't look at QuickBooks to patch. It's typically something that patches within the software itself. Mm-hmm. And you figure all these people that are using IT companies and running these RMM tools, it's just not going to pick that stuff up. So if you find a vulnerability in something like QuickBooks, how far can it spread before it's caught?
Well, the good news is QuickBooks comes in and it nags you like an iPhone and the Apple devices do. But it's but the key is finding something that has widespread use that isn't updated. Well, they don't even have to do that now. There's plenty of widespread use that people aren't updating, clearly, or it wouldn't have spread like this. So Microsoft issued that patch in March. Mm-hmm. And if you were doing, regular patch management, at the latest, you should have been getting that thing done mid-April. not mid-May. So if you were following standards for patch management, you'd already gotten this installed and you'd already shut down RDP. Because I've seen, I don't know that I've seen exactly the details of the different methods it was using to spread. Was it phishing and these RDP vulnerabilities, or was it only phishing? But there's so many of these ransomware attacks spreading using public RDP access, the remote desktop protocol, the terminal server that's sitting there open, and all you have to have is a username and password. They're using vulnerabilities in that thing to spread ransomware. And we talked about it more than once on episodes to turn that off. Mm-hmm. Just, it shouldn't be there. Find another way. There's 100 other ways, at least 100 other ways. Find another way, because you are just basically saying, come on in.
You don't want to do the rest of that
one? No, I'm not going to risk that right now. That is a saying from a previous podcast for those of you who've listened to all the episodes.
If you find it, tweet it.
Stand there with the door open and okay, never mind. But the FCC, or our internal FCC. But clearly, if you did this and you were religious about it and made sure that you were using them, Microsoft was able, after the NSA stuff was posted on WikiLeaks, Microsoft did fix it. I can't say that I know that they fixed everything that was published out there, but I can say that while a lot of people were just like, oh, they published some software on the WikiLeaks, and people don't necessarily understand the implications of that, but it was like the biggest gift day ever to cyber criminals. Mm-hmm. And we're just, last year, all of the stuff that we saw in 2016, which was insane with ransomware and cyber attacks, what we saw last year, they didn't have these tools. These didn't come out until towards the end of the year, right? I don't remember the first dump, but even more came out today, I think, or yesterday.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think it's been quite that long ago. Maybe a couple months.
It may have even been this year. It's recent. So it was insane last year before they had the tools that the security people were using to snoop on people on their computers. They didn't have those access to those deep down, hey, let's figure it out this way and go after cyber criminals. These were the tools they were using to go after terrorists and cyber criminals. And we just gave it to them.
April of this year.
Oh, so yeah.
So a month ago.
When you're having fun.
Yeah, it was a month ago.
Oh my God, it's going to get so much worse. So you've got to get these things patched. And it's up to the vendors. They've got to be on top of it. But, one of the things that everybody's really bothered by is that the NSA could have been using they were using these all along, and they never told Microsoft about them. Microsoft didn't learn about it until it was released. So here we had this vulnerability that was widespread. And I'm sorry, I don't know about you, David, but, most of the criminals don't use licensed versions of Windows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these hackers don't use Windows anyway.
No, they're on Linux, and they're on like little homemade computers running their own stuff. You never know what they're running.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, this power plant can blow up at any time, but we're using it to spy on all the people that live in that community. So we're not going to tell anybody unless somebody notices it might blow up. Then we'll help out. Mm. But who knows what else they've got, because, they continue to release stuff. And every time they dump something out, now you have that time frame. So we've got from April to now that they're turning around the first one, and they're getting it before there's time to patch. But Microsoft patched this in March, so that means they knew that it was coming.
Yeah.
So we got that thing fixed, and you get your patches in there, and you do them within 30 days, and You don't have to do them the day they come out, but you need to get them all done within 30 days. What are your thoughts on that? That's mine.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends. So, like for us, all of our patches they go through a process of being whitelisted, which means when they come out, we have what's called a NOC, which is a network operations center that goes through and tests all the patches to make sure they're not going to cause problems, because sometimes they do.
Indeed.
And then once they're whitelisted and everything's good, then we push them out. So, but that process can take a couple of weeks or so, sometimes longer, depends on issues. The problem we're having with patching nowadays is that very recently Microsoft has decided to start pushing out huge groups of patches all in one. So they used to come out with, patches on Tuesday. So every Tuesday was Patch Tuesday.
Right. Patch Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
So now what they do is they bundle them all up and they have like one big monthly push out, which to me is crazy because things change so fast. You cannot wait month to month to be pushing out these big, huge chunks of patches. So I'm hoping they'll reverse that and go back to the way they were doing it.
Yeah, especially with the results we found here.
Yeah, but that's causing an issue for IT people like me when all of a sudden, every month there's this whole huge bunch of patches that are coming out. Then we have to go through and test them and all that, which takes longer because there's so many more of them now. And so we're starting to get to where it's 3-4 weeks out before these patches are actually getting pushed out. And, not good, really. Not good at all.
No. In these security patches, you never know when they're going to find them and fix them. So, yeah, I don't know why they made that change. I'm sure there was a business reason. I don't know that there would necessarily be a technical reason unless there's, they had a whole bunch of stuff tied together. But I think people were like, hey, I've got, patch madness coming at me. And they were trying to fix, but these giant bombs and one of my biggest problems with the big ones is when it installs, it takes forever to shut down and reboot that one day, because there's so many. And you get noticeable complaints about it restarting the systems and stuff. So,
yep. But
still, even with your system, the way you do it, generally within 30 days, it's all done.
Yep, in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare case where I would think that it goes beyond 30 days.
Yeah, I actually went in and turned all the whitelisting off over the weekend just to make sure everything got pushed out. And then I'll go back in and turn all that whitelisting back on.
Yeah. Well, and the XP stuff, now, the emergency patch that came out, and there was in today's HHS notification, they said they had gotten some reports of attacks on medical devices. And those are generally devices that have those XP machines hooked to them, and at least in healthcare. Mm-hmm. The only people that are serious about this stuff that would still have them out there is that they're hooked to a medical device that they can't get replaced or they're trying to replace, and they have no choice but to keep that Windows XP out there. And there's ways that they've been secured, but one of the ways that it's secured is, not letting it talk to the internet, which in this case, creates the problem where it can't stop it. But that patch, that requires some manual effort on those XP machines. Pushing that down to those is something that absolutely must be happening today. If you haven't already done it, you're behind schedule. Mm-hmm. Because that thing, they're going to use that again. They're going to use that vulnerability again to see if it's still out there.
Yeah, it is. Well, I don't know how true it is. I have my skepticism, but I did see something this morning where it said, WannaCry version 2.0 already out. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't validated that, but you're right. Mm-hmm. It's not going to take long at all before you'll see round 2 come out. And it honestly wouldn't shock me if it wasn't by the end of the week.
Yeah, it could even be overnight tonight. You don't know, but all they have to do is release the same thing without the kill switch in it. Mm-hmm. And it's probably being sent out. I saw another one about a botnet that's spewing out like 1 million emails a day or something for, and thank you to those people who think your computer has, I don't care if they hack me, I've got nothing. you're part of the botnet now, spewing out emails to the rest of us and causing part of these infections. So it's going to be out there, and the new stuff, that's just the first big one in the NSA leak, and there's plenty more to come. So don't think that this is something that you can sit back and it's no big deal. But the fact that this thing spread like it did is freaking a lot of people out.
I should pay attention. We've been telling you this for a long time.
I know, really. It's like that. Now, I did learn. I don't know if you saw some of the stuff about. So, and I know a lot of this has gotten geeky, techno stuff for a lot of you. But patch management, if you're involved with HIPAA, you should understand that. And that just means installing security updates to the software that you run. But this next little piece, it is super nerdy, but it is one you want to ask your IT people.
You're such a nerdy little girl.
Here it comes. All right, see? There you go. I'm trying to be all nice. I do have somebody gave me a Christmas ornament that says "Talk nerdy to me."
Yeah, it's like that. Have you ever seen the Weird Al Yankovic White and Nerdy video? That's hilarious. Man, you've got to watch it.
Oh, well, we'll have to find it, put a link to it. And I'm not surprised that you're such a Weird Al fan. But but back to the serious thing is tell your nerds that you want them to make sure that they've looked into disabling SMB version 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and I'm trying to remember what it stands for, but it's Sam, Michael, Bubba.
That's the weirdest phonetic alphabet I have ever heard in my life. Sierra Mike Bravo, let's get with it.
I know, but come on. Sam, Michael, Bubba, that's like somebody's name in the South.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. And version 1, that's the oldest. And at any rate, according to David, Sierra Micah Bravo.
Not Micah, just Mike. It stands for server messaging block. If that's what you're trying to get.
Well, but I was trying not to make it, nerdy. I was trying to give them something else to remember it by than server messaging block, which is, you're supposed to talk to your nerds, not talk with them.
Talk at them.
I know. But the thing that's out there, and it explains, there's version 1, version 2, and version 3 of this. Mm-hmm. And people have it turned on so it can talk to the older servers. But unless you need that thing turned on, turn it off. And that is one of the tools that this thing used to communicate. Because it was really cool from a nerdy standpoint. But basically you got version 1, 2, and 3. And so it would turn off 2 and 3. So that anybody that communicated with it would have to switch to 1, because you'd try to communicate. It would send out a thing and it would say, hey, I can only talk in 1. And so then all of the other computers would switch to 1, and 1 had the vulnerability it needed to spread. So, yeah, but we don't need that thing turned on. Why is it on?
I don't know. It shouldn't be there. I mean, the thing about it is if you got version 2 and 3, does it need 1? Could it not uninstall 1? I don't know.
You can go in and disable it, but it's a feature in Windows you have to disable. Mm-hmm. I did mine.
This is where you get into the argument about Windows being kind of open and then you have to close it and lock it down versus something like Linux where it usually comes locked down, then you have to open it all up. Okay, so Data Breach Today had a good 5-point list on how to stop this thing. So let's cover that. And we'll talk about what these 5 points are before we close for the day.
Dun, da, da, da.
So the first thing is to install a patch. And they're again getting kind of a little nerdy here, but the patch is MS17-010. And
in other words, the 10th patch package from Microsoft for 2017.
Yes. That's one way to fix the flaw, because it's the WannaCry ransomware actually used the flaw that Microsoft patched in that fix. So if you can do that, and according to Malwarebytes that a lot of people have heard of, they have released a little statement that says, and I quote, "It is critical that you install all available OS updates to prevent getting exploited by the vulnerability. Any systems running Windows versions that did not have or receive a patch for this vulnerability should be removed from all networks."
Hey, I like that.
So it's funny because we say stuff like that, like shut it all the way down or take it off the network. And it's like, no, I can't. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we still have one, maybe two clients that are running XP machines. And no matter how hard we try, they won't let these things go. But those are the ones that keep me up at night. So, but definitely, you make sure you install that patch. It's the MS17-010 fix. Put that patch in there.
That's for all active systems. That's the one that should have already been installed. So if it hasn't, get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Get her done.
And then the emergency Windows patch, which is the one for XP and Server 2003, and I think he said Windows 8 as well, right?
2008.
Now, here's what I read. Microsoft had put out a release that said if you're on Windows 10, you're okay. None of this even applies to you. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, Windows 7 is still the most popular one out there. And I've been on Windows 10 so long, and I didn't go on it right away, And I've been on it so long now, Windows 7 looks odd to me.
Yeah, and I like 10. A lot of people complain about it, but I like it. Much better than 8. But
definitely.
Anyway, so there was an emergency patch. We talked about this earlier, which is a very unusual thing for Microsoft to do, to go back and issue patches for operating systems they no longer support. But that also gives you an idea how crazy this is. So
how scary, yeah.
So make sure you get that if you're running anything pre-XP, probably even pre-Vista. I'm not sure if they even do anything with Vista anymore. I think they kind of buried it. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think they're like, hopefully no one uses it.
Yeah, just ignore that. We didn't really do that. The other thing we just talked about is disabling or blocking the SMB. What is it? Sam something Bubba version 1. It's whatever you said it was.
Sam Michael Bubba version 1.
So disable that. There's guidance out there on how to do this from Microsoft, and we'll have the links in the show notes. Blocking it, there again, kind of some nerdy stuff here. But if you want to block the ports that are involved in this, they are 137, 138 of the UDP ports, and TCP range of 139 and 445.
Yeah, that's stuff to let your nerds know.
Yep. And as a last resort, if none of these options are available to you, then simply unplug the computer.
That's right. Shut it down.
Yep.
Don't do anything until you can get it fixed.
Absolutely. So we covered the what WannaCry or WannaCrypt, whichever one you want to call it, covered the outbreak, how it happened, and your response to it. So cool. You should be good to go. Everybody that's listening should be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm happy we haven't had anybody we know call us with it, and but we're quite fortunate. Mm-hmm. Again, shout out to Malware Tech, because that saved the United States.
Yeah,
I mean, the U.S. got hit pretty heavily, but it would have been spreading here just like it was spreading in Europe all day.
Yep.
By the time it got here.
So I'm just hoping that by the time people listen to this, they've got time to prepare for the next wave. And like Donna said earlier, if you're following HIPAA and if you're following the cybersecurity framework and all that stuff, then you're doing all these things now anyway. If you're doing the training that goes along with all these things, security awareness training, which is part of HIPAA, then you should already have these bases covered. And you should be able to sleep pretty good at night. However, if you're not, if you're one of the HIPAA schmippa people, or you don't, I'll do all this later, it's not always about the whole HIPAA thing. This is just something you should be doing as a business anyway.
Yeah, anybody in your home computers, this should be something everybody's doing to protect
everybody
all
else.
of us.
Yeah.
That's right.
This goes back to what I was saying a few weeks ago. Remember, I said there needs to be like some type of license to be on the internet. I'm not a big fan of government intervention, but there's got to be some way to verify that you are, what's the word, responsible enough to be on the internet these days. It's crazy.
Well, or if you don't want to learn this, get a Chromebook. Get something else, not a Windows computer.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I like my Chromebook.
I know David loves his little Chromebook. But again, MacBooks weren't hit in this. The Macs weren't. Doesn't mean they won't be the next time.
Yeah.
Because the NSA goes after Apple users too.
Yeah. But I don't think, could be wrong, but I don't think Chromebook has that ability to get hit like that. So.
Yeah, it has to do it through the browser. So.
Yeah. And every browser tab is like segmented somehow. I don't know. Anybody who wants to inform me on that can do it. But as far as I know, it's pretty safe.
Yeah, he won't read it.
Yeah, you're right. I won't. But it is.
Yeah, they sandbox them. They keep them in their own little silos.
Which is why I have a client that I put on Chromebooks and not had one call from them on any type of virus related anything. Even when they click on it, it doesn't do anything.
Can't get in trouble.
Nope. So there you go. Maybe you should put a Chromebook in your office and say, this is where we're going to check our email.
Well, you tell us about, you heard about somebody that had two computers on the desk, one that would work on the internet and one that wouldn't.
Yeah. I know.
Okay. There's ways to do that differently, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah, there is ways. But the thing is, you need to have these conversations, have the conversations inside your practice, your business, have them with your IT, whether they're internal or external. Maybe this is a good time to start doing some little mini risk analysis. Or a mini security analysis or something. Don't just ignore it and say, oh man, I finally dodged a bullet this time, or kick into the it won't happen to me syndrome. I mean, if you didn't get hit, it's a good time just to kind of make sure you have things shored up. Otherwise, it's only a matter of time before you do.
Mm-hmm. So have your ransomware response plan in hand. Just carry it around with you because you're going to need it. If you're not doing any of this, it's going to happen. But definitely, it's something, and we're advising all of our clients that even though you have the patches in place, do the exercise to confirm it and document that and put it in your compliance documentation.
Good idea, Donna.
Thank you, David. I live for your approval.
I know you do. Well, that's our show for today, folks. We thank you for listening. Don't forget, you can review us on iTunes and social media. There's all kind of review channels out there nowadays. So review us on those. You can visit us on helpmewithhippa.com. Also, if you do go to one of our social media outlets, click on the like or click on the share and click on all these other things that you can do out there. We appreciate it. Don't click on the links in the emails.
In our email, we have our
just make sure it's us. Anyway, send in a question. We might feature it on a future podcast. We actually have a lot of them that's come in recently, so we really need to have another episode answering some questions.
Yeah, so you could get those drawing.
Yeah. So anyway, remember, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me With HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.